witches, wizards and muggles. Such an honour it is to welcome you to Rennervate, a Harry Potter TCG revival podcast with your host, Doug, Mona and Emilio.
Thanks for that introduction, Dobby. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Rennervate, a Harry Potter TCG revival podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Doug Coleman, and I'm here today with the other co-hosts.
Mona Morsi, Harry Potter Morsi here in the house. I thought Emilio was going to go because he looked up.
I always leave it up to you guys to figure that out. My bad. How are you, Emilio?
I'm good. Sorry, my headphone fell out, so I didn't know what to do. That's why I just froze. But I'm great. I'm here with you all, and we're here together.
Yes. Super excited about it. We're talking about another card set tonight. In fact, tonight we're discussing Diagon Alley, the first to introduce locations and all sorts of really cool stuff. But as usual, before we dive into what we're going to be discussing tonight, I think it'd be cool if we go over our top 3 to 5 cards of the previous set. So last episode, we discussed the Quidditch Cup. Does anybody want to go first with their favorite cards? I know we have them prepared.
I can go first.
Okay.
So, my favorite cards, I'm going to go 5 to 1, just to go reverse.
Sure.
So in the number 5, I have Chocolate Frogs, just because, since I was a kid, Chocolate Frogs is something that was very special for me because I like animals and chocolate, and they were both together. So really cool card, and it's a great tutor. Then you have Halloween Feast for similar reasons. It's really cool art, Halloween, candy, and bats. Then you have Putter Outer, because I love the simplicity of the thing that looks like a lighter, and I like the effect a lot too, to bounce things from your opponents. Then Gold Cauldron, because it just looks amazing. I want
beautiful.
That in my room.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in the first place, I have Golden Snitch, because I find the effect hilarious for being such a high cost card. It makes no sense, and I'm totally making a deck with it that I want to play against Doe and Mona. Against Doe, because Mona, I cannot play that deck. I'm pretty sure I would die. Like, I would just draw it and I would be already dead. So it's like...
I feel like you guys think I'm like the most, like the worst player or like the most savage, which is good, I guess. But like...
You're great. You're just very serious about the gameplay.
It's very funny you even say you'd want to play that in a deck, because we're in the midst of the revival tournament right now and I'm getting my ass kicked. But the thing about it is I've seen some people use the Golden Snitch in their decks, and it's very just like, oh man, what an interesting card. I still don't know how to feel about it. It feels very trollish. Like Emilio says, he wants to play it even if he knows he's going to lose. It's very interesting. But as far as the top 5 for me, I'll also go 5 to 1. I'm going to start with Swarm. What a cool card to be able to count up all the creatures in play and do that much damage. Specifically now that I'm very much into like owl decks and stuff, like that's a great card. Fouled is my number 4, to limit your opponent on actions. Absolutely very powerful card, and do some damage at the same time. Number 3 goes to Professor McGonagall. Like, she's got to be in the conversation of top 5 for me. Just a great professor, and yes, give me the ability to have transfiguration cards in my deck without having to run that lesson type any day. And then number 2, I'll say Catch the Snitch for obvious reasons. And number 1 is Slytherin Match, because it's the only real healing opportunity for a Quidditch player.
Oh, nice.
Nice, very nice. For me, I would say McGonagall is number 1. I love her as a starting character. I love her ability. Just like you said, Doug, I love the fact that I can have her as a starting character without having transfiguration lessons, but she provides that power. Transfiguration and creatures go really well together, and so I just love the fact that I can have a full, really good deck with only creature lessons, in it, so that I could use both spells and creatures. And like you, also I love Swarm. Swarm is like one of my faves, especially with like that creature deck. It just it kind of has the ability to do damage using your opponent's creatures, you know, which I think
Yes.
is like it's like definitely like a punch to the gut, but it's also like, you know, it's like really great because it's like, well, that because sometimes, you know, your opponent will like lock you down somehow, or like I've had like a great deck and I wasn't able to pull my creatures, but they have a whole bunch of creatures, and then I get swarm and I'm like, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's awesome. I love the art for research. I don't know, like there's just something about it, you know, that's just like, you know, you're in a library and every single time, like there was like this sort of like love that I had with Hermione being like a bookworm and going to the library all the time. And so I just totally dig that.
Totally.
Yeah, I would say that the last two, I really like Defendo, the art for that as well. I'm mostly just going based off of art now. But let me see. After Defendo, I don't know. You know, I really really like I guess quite a few of them. Neville looks so Neville-y to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like to me that's like definitely quintessential Neville. But I also love the detail in Halloween Feast. You
Yes.
know, just like zooming into that is just
Mhm.
like absolutely awesome. So yeah, I guess we can go on, but I would say those are like my top 5, 6.
Very cool.
I have to say something about Neville. The casting the kid that did Neville, like it really outdoes the image I had even in the books of him. Like that kid really looks derpy, and he changed. Now he's a very sexy person. But in the
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
movies, in the first movies, he really looked like a mess, and it
Yeah.
was
Yes.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. It's true. I
Agreed.
agree.
So the
Yeah.
card looks like looks better, like a fancier Neville in my mind
Yeah,
after seeing the movies. Yeah.
That
exactly. Yeah.
that makes sense to me. Awesome. Well, I'm glad we could kind of go over that and tie in our previous episode. Listener, if you haven't checked that out, please do. But all right, it brings us to the Diagon Alley set. Let's go card by card and have a full-on discussion on these new cards that they've introduced. Like I said at the beginning of the show, this is the first time we're introduced location, so I'm excited to get to that. But let's get this one off and started. I think I'll start off the rotation and we'll go from me to Emilio and then to Mona. So our first card is Beater Grabs the Snitch, and it's a Quidditch power card. It costs 4 Quidditch power, and it's a spell that reads, return a match in play to its owner's hand. So pretty handy if, especially let's say your opponent's playing something as brutal as like 30-day long match or however that reads, the really long one. You could just be like, nope, don't want to deal with that.
True.
Or is it
That's
3 months long match?
Three,
That's the
yeah,
one I'm
3
thinking of.
months.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3-decade-long match.
Exactly. That's what it
Yeah,
feels like. I
that
don't
is
see
what
it
it
too
feels
often.
like. Yeah.
Definitely an interesting card, right? Like it's 4, but it bounces, so it's gonna return. It's kind of like it's interesting. I don't know. Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think, Mona?
Yeah, I mean, I do like this card. I don't use it as often as I probably should, but I think it's because I want to, like, I have a lot of matches in my Quidditch deck.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of like filling it up with cards that would return matches, you know, I just want to play as many as I can. But there has been a couple times where it's like saved me because, you know, I'm getting
Interesting.
my ass kicked and then someone, you know, my opponent puts a match down and then I end up having Beater Grabs a Snitch. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just return that because now I don't have to worry about it. And, you know, they don't get the reward or I don't get the reward, you know, it's sort of like kind of giving like a clean slate. But it's only been a couple times that I have. So
Yeah, I could see it being very circumstantial. Like, let's say that your opponent has like a bludger out or multiple bludgers out and things that are very contingent on a match being in play. By you being able to bounce that, just like, nope, don't want any of that damage. So
yeah.
it can be handy. But again, yeah, I don't find myself using it very often myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. In later sets, I think there's better choices. But yeah, for now, if we're just looking from Diagon down, it's a pretty good way to deal with matches. Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
And then we can move to number 2 now.
Yep.
Which I am cursed with this card. It's a Bulgeye. Bulgeye, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I think so.
Potion.
Yeah.
It costs 10, so pretty costly. It's an item for one, so I'm very happy about it. It's not a spell. And basically, you know, you can use an action, discard it, and then you hit your opponent for 13 damage. So pretty brutal, a lot of damage. And then it interacts with other cards that we're going to talk, following up. But on its own, it's a powerful spell, item, costs 10, packs 13 damage, but then there's recurrence of items in the game. So, sometimes it could be a choice to include this. And for the other cards that we're going to talk about, the Pickle the Eyes and the Beetle Eyes or something like that.
Yes, Eel Eyes and Beetle Eyes.
Yeah.
Pickle,
Yeah.
I'm hungry, so
That's it. Yeah,
better,
I'm with you on that. I really do like this card a lot. I use it without the Eel Eye and Beetle Eyes, and I also use it in that combination.
Yeah.
Because then I did an episode on that 3. But the thing that I like about it is to use it with Arthur Weasley as a starting character.
Okay. Yeah.
You can, even if you have Bulgai in play, then you could obviously use Arthur Weasley's ability to do that 10 damage to your opponent, which is using an item and its cost, So that's why I like it, so you could do that, and then you can discard it the next turn doing another 13. So it can be brutal in that way.
Yeah.
So just that combination alone, if you want to call it a combo. I call, like, whenever I use 2 cards together, or in my mind I see them working together, I call that a combination.
Yeah.
So I think somebody on my YouTube on the YouTube try to like comment and say, like, almost like a debate with me if it was a combo or not. But anyway, so whenever I say a combo, I mean like maybe they weren't like meant to be used together, but that's how I see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I think combo is an okay word for it.
Yeah.
Me
So
too.
I do like Bulgai Potion.
Not combination though, because combination makes me think of Chinese food back home. That's what we call like when we order like a plate. And just very quickly, because I wanted to say I'm cursed with this card because this is the card I mostly pulled from my Diagon Alley pack. So for the base set, I mostly pulled the Malevolent Mixture. That was the recurrent. And then for Diagon Alley was the potions. So I destroyed lots of potions in my early days because I used to play in my bathtub, as I've mentioned. I would like soak the cards and put it against the wall, and they would fight each other and stuff like that. And then the loser would get destroyed. So Bullseye Potion got destroyed. So I still have I think 13 copies of it, but I destroyed like 5, I think.
I love your childhood.
Yeah, no, that is very funny.
We'll move on to the third card, which is Christmas Feast. This is a really good card and very similar to Halloween Feast in the art and sort of like, I guess, the flavor of it. Another one that I really enjoy the art of. It is a spell, and it reads, put up to 4 non-healing item cards from your discard pile into your hand. Really helpful if you've got non-healing items that you want to use, like that Bulgai.
Yeah, it makes sense for this set because it's so item heavy.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
Very cool. And that brings us to our next card, which is Color Changing Ink. It's an item that reads, you may use an action to count the cards in your hand. Put them all on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then draw that many cards. So it's just a way to say, my hand sucks, I'm starting fresh. It's like the mulligan, but a card that gives you that action. So it's pretty nice, especially if you have like cards that are dead weights that are in your hand. Let's say like, I don't know, like anti-creature cards and your opponent's not playing creatures, things like that. You can just kind of reset and be like, let's leave it up to the luck of the draw.
Yep.
Pretty handy. I don't really use it though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's funny because like as we read some of these cards, I'm like, oh, it's a good card, as though I never knew that it existed or something. I'm like, no, like just put it in your fucking deck then, dude. Like,
Been there.
Yeah.
During this tournament, some people are playing cards that are specifically from Chamber of Secrets that I'm still unfamiliar with a lot of those cards. And I'm like, man, I need to read up on these and put them in my decks.
I'm with you.
Online.
Yeah, Color Changing Ink, it's an effect that normally gets a lot of play in a lot of other games. So an effect like this in Magic the Gathering, it's from Scroll Rack, the card. And yeah, it's just a very useful effect depending on the game. I've always used it outside of Harry Potter, but I don't play that much Harry Potter. So I don't know. I may use this. It's cool looking. And I know Mona has a video on like getting the card signed or something. You have like a whole thing drawn.
Yeah, I do. It's pretty cool. I had the artist do like a recreation of the art, and he wrote, like I had him like write like a certain message in there instead of the the scribbles and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
No,
that's awesome.
A cool video.
I'll post a picture of it on the Instagram.
Sweet.
Nice. And then we have Draco Malfoy, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Is that? Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Draco Malfoy is my favorite character to have as a starter because I love items and he gives you that extra action. Once you play an item, you get an extra action. So pretty cool. And of course, it combos with a lot of cards in this set and future sets, especially with the eel eyes and the beetle eyes and the potions. For me, I like to use it with the books that we're going to talk about later. Draw you some cards to give you some lesson power, but also with Putter Outer because you can, if you're playing items every turn, Putter Outer will bounce a card from your opponent, right? So you basically will net one more action than your opponent if you're bouncing something like an adventure back to their hand. So really cool card to play. And yeah, that's what I can say about it.
Yeah, I need to use this card more. I love that idea and that ability. Yeah, I would love to just build a deck focused around items and Draco Malfoy. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, that does sound fun. I never actually used Draco Malfoy Slytherin as a starting character. I've used the other Draco Malfoy from base set.
Yep.
But this one I haven't. So that's actually really good. Even just talking about all these cards out loud, obviously just having like ideas for new decks is always good, because we haven't been able to explore even the cards that still exist, with different combos and things like that. So I'm really curious to see what Emilio has to say about the books because I've never used any of the book items in decks at all. So cool. Okay, so moving to the next one, we've got Dragonhide Gloves. It is an item, and it says whenever a creature does damage to you, prevent one of that damage. So pretty cut and dry. With this one it's a good way to have damage prevented. It is pretty expensive for just one. To be it's kind of like, yes, in theory it sounds good because you want as much damage prevented as possible, but in my opinion, if you want to be able to not take the damage from your deck, then I would use something like Leaping Toadstool instead, because that costs one, and it gives you four, essentially you can use 4 turns to prevent 1 damage. So even if you have a few of those, but this is a good card. The art is dope, of course, but it is expensive for that. I'm sure you guys agree.
Definitely expensive. I could see it coming in handy against like an owl deck specifically. So, because like those creatures do so little damage, sometimes even only just 1 damage each. So like if like, let's say 3 owls are each doing 1 damage each, this will prevent all of those 1 damages from each owl, I'm pretty sure. So whenever a creature does damage. So in certain circumstances, it could be handy. But again, like you said, very expensive. I don't find myself running this in decks ever, really.
That's interesting. So you're saying that whenever a creature does damage to you, prevent 1. So if you have like 4 creatures in play.
Exactly.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Then maybe. All right.
When there's an onslaught, it's a little more practical.
Yeah, and I think that's also important to remember remind our listeners that these cards can all have interactions if you build decks that go against each other, right? So I will always encourage everyone, always build dual decks. So you can include cards that normally will not be played competitively, but are just flavorful and cool to play. Because otherwise, if you just go to a tournament, sometimes people have a different definition of what it means to play for them. And for me, it's flavor and interaction, right? So
that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Keep it fun. Let's keep it playful, guys.
Exactly. Yeah. We're all here playing a game. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
But all right, I think that leads to our next one, which is Ilops Owl Emporium. Speaking of me and my owl decks, this is our first location, actually. All right, so it's a unique location. When you play this card, discard any other location from play, yours or your opponent. So just like adventures and stuff, it will replace that. But it reads, each owl has 1 more health. Whenever an owl does damage, it does 1 more damage. So like I was just alluding to, most of the owls do very little damage and have very little health. So just to like boost it by 1 for each is fantastic. So definitely if you are building an owl deck, you're going to want to run 4 of these in hopes that you can get 1 in play.
Yeah, 100% on that. I have had owl decks played against me and just like my regular standard creature deck, and this definitely does the damage. I mean, because like Doug said, you have owls that just do 1 damage, but if you got 4 owls in play and then each of them now do 2, it's like, that sucks. 1 damage sucks, like I always say, but it's just like, so yeah, definitely want to have those for sure.
All about stacking with the owls, and then you have something like Swarm in play too. It gets pretty crazy quick.
Yeah, that's when you just give your deck away and you just say, don't ever talk to me again.
Yeah, exactly. Friendship over.
So done.
The next one is my turn, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's Flourish and Blots. That's how you say it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's another location, only costs 3, Transfiguration, and either player may use an action and discard 2 of their lessons from play to draw 5 cards. So, very flavorful. You discard some books and you get some cards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. I personally do not use this card. I mean, 2 lessons from play, it's kind of a very steep price to pay. If it was 1, maybe I would play this card. But yeah, I don't know. I don't, unless there's like a sort of discard and revival deck, which I don't think there is in Harry Potter. To my knowledge, I don't see the value in this card.
No, I don't. The only way I ran this card in a deck was for a very experimental deck built around the combo of Spiral Dive. And that's like where, if it's a Quidditch card where you take the number of cards in your hand, you can discard as many as you want and do that much damage to your opponent.
Yeah.
And there's certain like interaction
Yeah,
cards.
I can
like,
see that. Yeah.
Yeah, Diagon Alley is an adventure where, like, if you play Draco's Trick to win the adventure you played, I think the reward of Diagon Alley is draw as many cards as you want. Yeah. Then you also have a Flourish and Blots where you've been building up lessons the whole game. You discard 2 of them to draw 5 more. You just build up a massive hand and then play a Spiral Dive. It's basically a game ender. So that's honestly, I don't ever play Flourish and Blots unless it was like with that in mind. And even that kind of gameplay is very risky. You need things that go your way or else it's a waste of time.
Definitely. It sounds fun though.
Yeah,
it is fun.
That's really interesting. So you're essentially just trying to like build your hand so that you
as
can
big as possible.
Yeah.
But then the real risk you run there is, and I think it might have happened to me when I was trying it. My wife played something like Charms Exam or Obliviate, and I was just destroyed.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So, yeah.
That's sad.
Something to watch out for. Sad. Yeah.
Yeah, that would suck.
But in other games, this would be sort of like a game-breaking card. I just don't think that Harry Potter got to the extent to make it a game-breaking card, as far as I understand. But this could be a really damaging card. Like
that makes sense.
A 5 draw is a lot, but you know that's where we're at right now. And now we're gonna get a good night's sleep, I think.
Yes, we are. Good Night's Sleep is a spell. It's a healing spell, and it says choose one of your characters in play that has a once per turn ability you have that you've already used, and you may use that ability. So something like Madame Pomfrey.
That's exactly what came to mind.
Yeah, that like, Madame Pomfrey allows you to take 12 cards from your discard pile, put them back into your deck. If you've used her already, then you can play Good Night's spell to use her again. Now it's a great card. Of course, it costs 10. I've only been able to play it once. I've had it in a couple of decks, but I just am not able to pull it, or just the timing doesn't work out because something else comes up, or there's a bunch of different reasons. But either way, it's a really good card, of course. So.
Artwork wise, I gotta mention Harry looks a little more like Frankenstein than Harry Potter to me. I don't know.
I'm with you on that.
His head shape is a bit weird.
Yeah, it is. That was quite the sleep.
Yeah, it looks like he had like a rubber band, like lots of rubber bands around here, and his head just started to squish.
That's true. Yeah,
a bit. Yep. But no, agreed. That one's just too expensive to justify for me. But I love the ability it provides.
Even with Dumbledore out, even if you had if your main character would be Dumbledore, it still costs 8, and then you would have to have the Madame Pomfrey, which is one of the few characters that it's worth having the ability to refresh. Maybe Grip Hook. It's another.
Or
one
even McGonagall too, if you have an opponent throwing adventures at you, could be handy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in an emergency.
That brings us to our next location, and this is actually one of my favorites of the set, Gringots, the bank we're all familiar with. It reads, each player gets 1 more action on each of his or her turns, including the turn you play this card. So that already gives you a little bit of advantage. As you play this, you get that additional action. Downside is your opponent gets an additional action. So it gets spicy. You got to really determine whether or not this is going to benefit you, or if it's going to benefit your opponent even more than you. I've been in a couple of situations where I'm like, I want to play this, but I'm also nervous that my opponent playing Quidditch cards is going to really combo me and end the game before I can even do what I had in mind.
Yeah, that's the really like shit thing about locations that I think we should mention is that it does assist both players because
Yes.
you are in a location together essentially. That's kind of like the idea. So we're gonna get to more locations where you'll be able to see where that might not be the best, but that's also something to keep in mind when you're playing against an opponent and what locations you want to play. Because some of them you might hold on to because you're like, well, they can probably utilize this more than me, and so just kind of keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and keep in mind that the what Mona just said. This game was sadly before Wizards of the Coast actually got more R&D going. So and other card games. So all card games evolved to not have this stupid rule that you can only have one location in play. Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering. Both people can have like whatever location is, because there's fields in Yu-Gi-Oh. There's actual in Magic the Gathering you have a specific type of card that you can also have. I forget the name right now. But the main thing is that it's an old mechanic. It's not good. I would change that if I was like someone rewriting the rules for Harry Potter. But I don't know what you all think. But yeah.
I kind of like that aspect of it, that it's like Mona said, you're both in that location. So like for us to each play our own location might get a bit complicated, because it's like, well, then where are we at in this world, like battling each other essentially. But I like the strategic aspect of it, of making you really question, can I play this location and it's going to benefit me and them, or is it just going to benefit me because this one only applies to creature cards and I know they're not running any creatures in their deck or something. So it just adds an element of strategy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because it's the same sort of token as like your starting character can never be discarded because it's you.
Yeah.
Right? So like it's that same sort of like idea that like if my starting character is McGonagall, it's McGonagall fighting against Draco or something like that, you know what I mean, or dueling against it, so like to have that kind of universe, like so you're sort of like surrounded in is what I do enjoy about the locations. But maybe what could have happened was some of the abilities that the locations allow you to do could then be like items or something, so that you could each play your own. But I don't know, I mean, I guess it's kind of like finicky and difficult, but I do like the fact that you're in a location together, which makes it more strategic, and you have to think harder, like, do I want to go there with you because it might benefit you if we go to the same store, if you will, and you need to buy what I need to buy, is that something that I want to do with this deck? So you really kind of have to dive into it if you want to see it like that. But it does kind of bring the world alive, I think.
And what makes it an even playing field is that your opponent, if they have a location, they could just replace yours right away. So it's like, actually, we're going to this store, and you're metaphor. So it's like very much you have control to replace the location, and that could really screw them over and benefit you, all things considered. So
which is what you don't want in a game. Like from all standpoints, that's bad. That's bad mechanic. Because it's like you're like giving less security of plays to cards that might be beneficial to have more security. And also, even in terms of flavor, you're a fucking wizard. Like, you can move around. It makes no sense. I'm sorry. Like, I understand the being one location, maybe if you were like a gangster or something, but you're not a gangster. You're a wizard. You're moving around. And yeah, I don't know. I think it will be interesting to see a format that the locations don't get discarded, and see if that enables some new decks. Because, as you say, it's the same thing. You have a small card pool. Let's start with that. But then, like, if you have the location, you don't have to worry about your opponent discarding the location with the location of their own. I think it would enable some interesting strategies, which is what all the other games have done, right? So to enable that,
that's a good point. I mean, because I only play the Harry Potter TCG, so I only know about that.
Same.
So that is a good point. I have no idea how that would work. But.
No, I always appreciate Emilio's input on that kind of stuff. But
then
yeah,
we go to
love
Gringotts.
that. Yes.
Now we're still in the bank, in this location, and now we have the Gringotts Vault Key, one of my favorite cards from this set. It's a 6 charms, and it's a spell, of course, because keys are spells, they're not items, as most things are in this game. And then you search your deck for any card and put it into your hand.
It is.
So it's amazing. Tutors like this, no drawback other than you get your card, it goes to your hand. It's a little costly, but with future cards like Albus Dumbledore, it just costs 4, which is amazing to get the game piece that you need. And yeah, tutors are just amazing. It's like what makes decks consistent in most games. And normally they have drawbacks. Here, I think it's just the casting cost is the little drawback because it's a little high. So yeah, but really cool.
Yeah.
And the key really does look magical.
Yes.
So I give
That
them
art.
credit for that. Yeah.
Absolutely captivating. Yeah.
For sure. I totally dig the art, and I actually use Gringotts Vault Key a lot in my decks. I do like it. It's helped me. It's definitely saved me a couple times. So I'm all for it.
Same here. No, I run a lot of those as well, and I like the ability to even get a healing card. Like we've said in the past, like there's so many times where you get healing cards discarded, you never get them back. If you could get a Gringotts Vault Key and just go get it, it's nice to just do that.
100%.
There is like a meme amongst me and my wife when we play this, because one day she had such a bad hand, she played a Gringotts Vault Key to get just a lesson because she needed a lesson that badly. And she always like jokes like, what's the worst card you could imagine playing a Gringotts Vault Key to go get? And I was saying to her, I think it would be Eat Slugs. Yes, exactly, from the revival. Because why would you get that to then damage yourself? Anyway, we can move on.
Yeah, definitely. And the last thing would be like, in most games, tutors are limited to 1 because they're really powerful, right? In terms of consistency.
Yes.
So and when they're not, they're very specific. So if there was like a card that really benefits from you having a big graveyard, if you don't want to necessarily discard yourself in other games, people would search the same tutor. Like in Yu-Gi-Oh, there's a card.
Oh wow.
A card called like Table of Contents, Toon Table of Contents, and you search for Toon Table of Contents to search for another Toon Table, to search for another Toon Table, to search them for a Toon card. So it just fetches Toon cards, which is a subtype. But in Harry Potter, you have other things because the only way to lose is to be decked out, right? So it's a different interaction there. Yeah.
Oh,
interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now we have the little McDonald's goblin here.
Yeah.
Still in Gringotts. Yeah.
Still in Gringotts. Yeah.
Most definitely. Yes, I totally love Grip Hook. Grip Hook is a character. He's a goblin, and his ability is once per game you may make your opponent discard his or her hand. Then your opponent draws as many cards as he or she discards in this way. This is like a really good card. I use it often. I've actually like one of the like the combos that I've kind of like used, and I'm sure other people have, but is to use Grip Hook on your opponent. Let's say that they've got 10 cards in their hand or something. They discard it, draw their 10, and then on their next turn, I would use Obliviate. So like just to discard it again. And so it's like, it's a pain in the ass, of course, but just the having that ability to get your opponent to, because sometimes you have obviously that's 20 cards in this example. And that there's a lot of good cards in there, so just to kind of set them back a little bit out of desperation or savageness, either one, it's good. I like it.
Nice. Yeah, I got to experiment more with this card. I never really have played it, but it's really cool.
It's a great card. It looks like a Starburst in McDonald's, and I don't understand. I don't imagine Harry Potter movie if they had dressed out the goblins in this outfit. I think it would have been a different story for me in terms of world building.
Fair enough.
Look at that. Oh my God.
There it is. Awesome. For any of our audio listeners, you're going to have to check out the YouTube video of our podcast. Please. But Mona is showing us Grip Hook in his cart as the vinyl figurine with the whole cast of characters going on that Gringotts cart ride. Awesome.
Iconic.
Nice.
Yes.
And that's one thing we can also say about Grip Hook. He's not a witch or wizard, so you can't have him as a starter, which is unfortunate.
Yep.
Well, and that brings us to our next card, which is our first Quidditch match of this set. Gryffindor match, cost 1 Quidditch lesson power, as all matches do. And it reads, to win, do 12 damage to your opponent while this card is in play. That damage doesn't have to all be done at once. And the prize is the winner gets 2 more actions during his or her next turn. So good way to start stacking some actions if you can put that to your advantage. I don't know. I don't really play this match too often, but again, I can see it being advantageous. Actions are so priceless in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Actions are gold. Like, is if you can stack actions, then I had somebody tell me once that they were almost certain that like if you had more actions and like you were like guaranteed like every single time they had more actions, they just won the game. You know, I mean, it's like no matter what, you only get 2 actions a turn. So stacking up actions, however you do it, is definitely the way to go. I personally haven't used Gryffindor Match myself. Often I have used it once or twice, but this isn't the match that I personally go for. I don't know why. It's just not, but it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're getting at though. Like statistically speaking, I think the person that has more actions most likely will win the game unless they're just playing lessons and doing things that are like avoiding damage and stuff. But I feel like there was even a debate in the revival group not that long ago of people getting upset over who goes first in the game. It's just like a huge advantage. I'm like, to me, I never really looked at it that way. I just thought you do a dice roll and whoever goes first, it's not like that person's always going to win. But yeah, if you're stacking actions, you could definitely put yourself in a better position.
Yeah, you know, in that same conversation that I had, this was someone I was playing with, an opponent. He said that he actually thought that if you started the game, you were almost guaranteed to win, which is not true. It's not true.
Right.
But I think that's been like his experience, and I think that might have been a few other people's experience who maybe have played a handful of times or a couple handfuls of times, and so that's where some of these debates come from and these arguments. But it's really just not. It's just not true. You know, because after you go, like let's say that you go first and I go, we pretty much are like, you know, we kind of oftentimes have the same equal playing field. You know, so
right.
It's really, it just depends on your hand is really what I think it depends on.
I agree with that as well. I think I saw a couple people in the discussion say like, well, if we ever play, I'll let you go first and I'll still beat you. I'm like, I know, I think it's possible.
It really depends on your decks as well. I think it mostly comes from other games, because all games have a drawback if you start first. Like in Magic the Gathering, you don't draw a card if it's 1v1. For example, and in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think it's the same thing. You don't draw a card if you go first, because it is sort of advantageous, because your first actual turn you'll have more resources than your opponent if you don't do that. It's not, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna win.
Exactly.
Right.
But it does normally mean that in mirror matches, I mean decks that are fairly similar, if you start, and of course you have the luck of getting the cards you need, you have a really big advantage. But it really depends. It's not like I can't say that you will always win. The same is going for Metasu actually. In Metasu, the person that starts first also draws a card, and it's just savage. It is a really big advantage. But you know, it's also 50-50 chance of getting to go first. So it's like
exactly.
It's the best 3 out of 3. I don't know. Yeah, it depends. Some people are really competitive though in Harry Potter. So
definitely, I'm seeing that a lot in this tournament. There's some really good players. But all right, that takes us to our next card. I believe that's Emilio.
Yeah, and that's Hagrid, Keeper of Keys, who's not a wizard because we don't know why. He can do magic, but he's not a wizard. And basically, it says that you may use an action to search your deck, and you may take a location card from the deck, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. Shuffle your hand after you take the location. Shuffle it back. So yeah, it's a location fetcher. If you're into locations, that's great. You can't start with it, which kind of sucks because they removed this magic for this card. And I don't know if I have never used this card. I don't use locations that often. So I don't know if you have experience using this card at all.
I don't, but now that I'm rereading it, it makes me want to throw him in my owl deck so I could get that Ilops Owl Emporium, because there's plenty of times where I've played an owl deck and never get that location in play, and it's like, damn, that would really help. But I just love the flavor of this card. Keeper of Keys, and he's getting a location, like that's just perfect.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I think that if I were to ever create like a fan card myself, I would do a Hagrid as a wizard. Because, you know, for me personally, I just don't, I feel like he should be. I get that he was expelled, and it's like now, like that's like, now we're victims to that. It's like, but yeah, I mean, Hagrid, all the Hagrids do something great, and this is a good one. That's a really good idea, Doug. I might do that myself and steal your idea.
It's something to experiment with. And luckily, if people recall from our past interview with Sammy DeSalvo, he said that we might be having a starter Hagrid coming soon. We got to keep our eyes and ears open for that. That'll be really cool.
For sure.
Cool.
All right. That takes us to our next card.
Yeah, so this is going to be an item, and it is Hagrid's umbrella. It's a wand because he's a wizard. So it says it's super small. So let me zoom in there. Okay, so it says you may use an action and discard this card from play to search your deck. You may take a location card from your deck, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. If you play this card and you already have a wand in play, discard the old one. So, obviously this, because Diagon Alley introduces locations, a lot of their cards are location heavy as far as like their abilities and what they can do. This is a good one if you have like a heavy location and charms deck, because this is a charms card and it does provide one, which is probably what most people would use it for, or maybe have a wand out, just in case. But I do like it, and of course I love the art. So
definitely very handy card.
Yeah, and also like it's the flavor there would be I think when he taps the bricks with the umbrella, which I don't know if he does in the books, but he does in the movies, right?
Definitely.
I think that's the flavor, which is pretty cool.
I do like that too.
And Hagrid loves animals and beasts, and now we're gonna go to a dragon.
Yes, and so that's one thing I forgot to mention at the top of the episode. I do have some unopened Diagon Alley booster boxes, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of the podcast here. But I dived into one of them, and I was able to pull a holographic version of this dragon, and it made my day. But we're talking about the Hebridean Black Dragon. I think that's how you pronounce that. But it's a creature dragon, and it reads, to play this card, discard one of your Care of Magical Creature lessons from play. It costs 8 power, and the damage done each turn is 7, and its health is 5. So dragons, can't go wrong with a dragon in a creature deck, in my opinion. A bit high cost, and yeah, discarding lessons is never fun, but that 7 damage each turn is pretty attractive.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you on that. I love the dragons for sure. But as I've mentioned before, I'm not the biggest fan of discarding lessons, just because you have so many people out there that use spells like Lost Notes to discard lessons. So if I discard a lesson to play this, and then someone else discards this, then maybe I don't have enough lessons to play it again, or something like that. It's really like what goes through my mind. But either way, it's definitely pretty to look at. So you guys,
yes.
That's good.
Especially the holographic one.
Yeah, yes.
And definitely that's something also that we see the early Wizards of the Coast mindset, because things that discard lessons, and in our games, in Pokemon Energies, in Magic the Gathering lands, are cards that are a big no-no in terms of designer, because it just makes the game really silly. So most people, even to this day, they do not use land destruction magic, which is lands are the lessons of magic. And in Pokemon, there's stuff that discards energies, but it's like more chance oriented, and it's still like people don't like them in general, right? Just sending you back, it's like, okay, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Right.
And talking about lost things that are annoying and that died, we're gonna have Hedwig, a card. And Hedwig, it's
R.I.P.
It's 6. It's staring at you as if it's disappointed at your recent choices.
Yeah.
A very, very weird look there, very human look of disappointment. It's unique, which you have to consider, right? Because that means you can only have one out, sadly. But when you play, you can have a non-healing card from your discard pile into your hand. I really like Hedwig. It's 6, but it's a tutor as well, but it searches from your discard pile instead of your deck. So I like this in Gringots Vault Key if you have a serious combo in mind. And then it damages 1 per turn and has a health of 2. So it's just like a little annoying. Maybe in Owl deck is better, of course. In general, as someone that would not run an Owl deck, I would love this card to have a health of 1, so it could be get rid very easily, and I can play another one to keep recurring things. I don't know what happens when you play. If I play another Hedwig, can I just discard one of them, or I just can't play another Hedwig?
You can't, because it's unique. That it's the same with like characters and stuff. And that was like one thing I ran into when I was in my tournament. I was running my Quidditch deck versus another Quidditch deck. I have Oliver Wood as a ally, like helping character in my deck, and they were running him as their starter. And I'm like, now that's a dead weight card. So in that situation, if you already had Hedwig out, I don't think you could play it to replace it.
Yeah, which is also different from other games. In other games, you can do that, and then you choose, like in Magic, you would choose which one to keep, because there's a legend rule, which is the same thing as unique, but then you can play it and then destroy the less recent one and take advantage of the effect if there's an effect to be taken advantage of. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there's just one thing I wanted to know about the owls. Like if you are going to build an owl deck because of the ILOPS Emporium and kind of like getting into owls now, each owl has a different ability, and each one has an ability. So unlike some other creatures that don't, like each one does, which is another reason why maybe the damage is kind of low, or the health even is kind of low, is because it also does something else. And I think that's one of the things Wizards of the Coast did, was they were like, well, if it does this, and we're going to make sure that it doesn't do that, kind of a situation.
Balance.
That's a normal balance thing.
Yeah, for sure. So
yeah.
Okay, it's me, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we are on Hermione, top student. She is a witch, of course, and her ability is once per game, you may search your deck. You may take up to 2 lesson cards from your deck, show them to your opponent, and put them into your hand, and then shuffle. I like Hermione. I do. I've used her as a starting character once or twice. It definitely comes in handy, but it's also just it kind of helps you for a certain period of time, and then it doesn't. But at the end of the day, more lessons are good, right? So
definitely. I just pulled my very first copy of this card, so I'm excited to mess around with it. I know we've talked about the previous iteration of Hermione. This is just like a upgraded version. She's able to go get those lessons cards free. It's pretty nice.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I would say it's an interesting card if you, for whatever reason, make a very specific deck that, let's say, only runs really like, you only need like 2 lessons for whatever reason. It'll be funny because you could really use Hermione to get the only 2 lessons that you need and then keep playing. I don't think that's a deck with a little card pool that exists in Harry Potter. But if the game went on, it'll be really interesting thing to witness, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, that takes us to our next card, which is Lee Jordan, another character, Gryffindor unique. Reads, you may use an action to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Put all of those cards that need Quidditch power into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So yeah, great way to just build up your Quidditch resources. So if you're doing a Quidditch deck, would make sense to run him. I never really have. I don't know why, actually. In all reality, I probably would like that ability.
Same, 100%, same.
Just the idea of costing 2 actions to get him in play, I guess, is the least attractive thing about that.
You don't think you'd have him as a starting character?
I could. Honestly, I'm just so used to using Hooch. I need that ability to get that broom, baby.
Yeah, I feel that. I don't use brooms often in my Quidditch deck, so I would. In my house. I think I would. I think I'd use Lee Jordan. Maybe I'll try him out.
Yeah, very cool.
So looks like a good card. We'll see. Yeah, maybe people have to remember to use Hooch's ability more often. Sometimes people forget.
Yeah, that's me. I know he's calling me out.
Okay, let's go for letters from no one. An adventure, and you have Harry trying to grab a card, a very specific card, because there's thousands of cards and invites flying around him, but he cannot go to the floor to get them. It has to be one that's floating. Anyway, so it's there, and then the effect is that your opponent may use actions only to draw cards, which is not great.
Horrible.
Because they're damaging themselves.
Yeah.
And if your opponent discards 5 cards of their hand, then they solve the adventure and they get to draw 2 more cards. So really interesting card. Right, you're getting letters, you can only draw cards, and you're sort of overwhelmed with information. So I like the flavor of that. I've never played this card. I don't think I would play it. To be honest, I think that it gives your opponent the chance, basically, to. I mean, I don't know. I actually don't know. Like, I've never thought of playing this card, and now that I read it, it's like it's very confusing to me. What do you all think?
I think I've had it played against me once before, and it's just an annoying card to deal with. It's meant to just make you discard because you're not going to want to put up with that effect of just having to draw every time, unless your hand sucks. And I guess you're just going to have to maybe go with that a few for a turn or two. But in all reality, you're probably just going to discard those 5 right away and just be like, no thanks.
Yeah.
And then draw the 2 to make up for the 5 you just lost. And this is like you were saying with drawing multiple copies of Bulgai. I've pulled more of these than I want to admit. So, and I'm not even that big a fan of the card.
Yeah, the only time that I can think of using Letters from No One would be if it were in a creature deck and my deck was like gnome heavy, garden gnome.
Yeah.
Which has your opponent discard a card each turn at the end of their turn.
Yeah.
And so if your whole point is to have your opponent be left with nothing to do, and then you're sort of taking over, then this might be good because even like through the no, that's not through. I think it is. No, it's there's an adventure that's a gnome adventure. I forgot.
Yeah, the gnome in the garden.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so that does the same thing. So if you did something like that, and then you had your gnome, and then Letters from No One, it's just essentially saying like you're not going to have any cards in your hand or very little, and then I'm doing damage to you all the while. So something like that is probably the only thing that I can think of for me personally.
I guess that what I meant with it is just that it is a brutal card. I don't like if you build a deck with this and Draco from the base set. I think I would not play it with you. You know, it's like way too much.
Just in the middle of the game, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take your cards just as a payment for this horrible moment.
There you go. So you can't do this to anybody else.
Talking about horrible moments, now we go to the horrible art of Madame Irma Pierce.
Oh gosh, yes.
That is bad. Okay, so Madame Irma Pince. You may use an action to put a book card from your discard pile into your hand. Lesson cards aren't books, which is really good that they said that because some people will be like, "Oh, that's easy." I've never used her, and I've nenever used books either, so.
Right. No, I've not used her either. I did pull my first holo version of her, the mirror holo, and it's prettier to look at than the regular version.
Yeah.
But no, she's pretty gnarly. And what I don't even recall is she just the librarian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, no, I have zero experience with this card, and
the holo is scary.
She scares me away.
The holo is scarier because it looks like the nose is gonna poke your eye out or something.
It's very three-dimensional. Yes.
But now we go to the bathrobe guy.
Yes. Professor Quirrell, what a name. Wizard unique. It reads, once per game, you may return all creatures and items to their owner's hands. So yeah, nice way to clean the board and bounce all items and creatures. Yeah. Again, I don't really play too many item decks. I do a lot of creature decks, but I don't really run this character index, and I haven't really encountered it. But do either of you have experience with it?
Yeah, I love this card. I think this is a great board wipe, and board wipes are your friend in most games. So
yeah,
you can either be board wiping to then obliviate them or something like that. I like the flavor because I just imagine that the professor just takes off his turban and shows the ugly Hawk Push Voldemort back there, and everyone just runs away.
Yeah.
Even items, you just don't want to see that, So that's or he just derobes, because in the start he just has like a robe. It just like flashes everyone, everything runs away. I don't know. But Mona, do you use this? Because I bet you have to use this at least once.
I do use this one. I use Quirrell in my character deck, my character deck, my creature deck. I have them in a few. I do like Quirrell, especially when you have somebody who's playing this combination that we've been kind of referring to with the Bulgai, Eel Eye, and Beetle Eye. Just them sort of building up to that, and then having Quirrell wipe it clean. And then, like you said, I mean, having that combination with Obliviate or something would even be better. But yeah, I mean, it's a good card. I do like it.
Yeah, it's a card that I would also use the good night sleep, because the effect is brutal enough to warrant that.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, so now we're gonna move to the self-steering cauldron, which is mine, I
Yes.
think.
Yep.
One of my favorite items. It looks like a commercial from the 50s of like how to be a better housewife, and
True.
it has a 4 cost potion cost. Uh, anyways, it provides 4 potion lessons, power, not lessons, for potion power. It's an item. It's cauldron, and basically you have to discard 2 of your potion lessons to play this. But then you get a 1 more action. As we've been talking about, that 1 more action can be really important. If you're playing Draco Malfoy Slytherin, then you get 2 actions that turn. Basically, play for free, and you have a 4 power lesson advantage and the art from the 50s housewife reading a book there. So really cool art. I love the item, and I always liked it since the first day that I pulled this card.
Yeah. I just pulled one last night and it was holographic. It was so exciting. But the losing 2 potion lessons is a little bit easier to swallow because you're gonna net 2 anyway because you're provided 4. So yeah, this card's really awesome actually. I need to run more of them. Now that I got another one, I will be putting that in a deck as soon as I can.
Yeah, agreed. I do like the fact that it provides 4 power. I always say, I'm not like the biggest fan of getting rid of lessons. Yeah, just to be able to play it, only because of myself, because I know that when someone gets rid of lessons to play items like this, I end up going and discarding it, and then they can't play it again. And so I'm like, well, but anyway, it is a really good card. Totally dig that. So
Definitely.
Cool.
And that takes us to our next item.
Yes.
The horny card.
That's it. Silver Unicorn Horn. It is an item and it's healing. When you play this card, put up to 2 non-healing cards from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck in any order. You may use an action and discard this card from play to shuffle up to 6 non-healing cards from your discard pile into your deck. Yeah, I mean, really good card. I do like it. I don't use it as often as I think I should, but I like it.
Yeah, it looks like a dangerous sex toy.
Yeah, it does look like a sex toy.
Yes, perhaps it is.
Yeah,
you never know.
Maybe that's what Snape and Dumbledore were using up there in those dark nights. But yeah, really cool art. I love this card since I first saw it, maybe because I'm a gay man. But other than that, I do love the art, and I love that it has the price of 21 galleons in the back. I remember putting prices on my stuff because I had a whole Harry Potter scene going on. I would put the prices on galleons, not just, or whatever the other coin is. So yeah, I love this card. Really, also sort of nostalgic for me. One of the ones that I associate with the set the most.
Nice.
Super cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, that takes us to our next spell. It's a transfiguration spell.
Hater spell.
Table Trouble. Discard all items from play, yours and your opponent's. So I can only imagine you're going to want to play this if you don't have items in play, but if you do, hopefully they're not too good and your opponent's items are aiding them even more than you. I don't play this card, but I can see why someone would want to. It's like you said, a table wiper, but only for items, but also it'll backfire on yourself if you have any items yourself in play.
Yeah, don't play this card. Don't use this. No, like this card is horrible. Please, never. All our listeners, never use this card. Of course, as a Draco Malfoy player, I hate this card with all my life.
Yeah.
And it's also a good card, even if you're running just books, right? Because books you can discard and draw, and then you can wipe your opponent's items. So it just depends on what kind of matchup you are, but definitely a side deck card in the least. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, agreed. I don't use it often. I don't. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. I guess it's one of those cards that, like Doug said. I mean, I can see why people would want to use it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Scary art too. As someone that hoards things, this is like a nightmare for me. Things start to disappear.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we can move on to the famous Harry Potter.
Yes.
Cool. So our next card is the famous Harry Potter, as I just said. And it's a unique character wizard. You might know him. He's in the books. And basically the effect is that before each one of your turns, if you have 4 or fewer cards in your hand, you can draw until you have 4 cards in your hand. As always, Harry Potter is getting resources, pretty cool effect. If you have some sort of really fast-paced deck, I've never built a deck with them. I would love to maybe figure something out. Because if you play your cards right, if you have like extra actions per turn and stuff like that, you can really take advantage of having your hand refilled. In other games, this will be a card that would be immediately banned. Like it's too much draw power.
Interesting.
But not in Harry Potter, as we've talked about. Since if you run out of cards to lose, it's a different situation. But
That
this
makes
card would
sense.
never exist in other games. It's way too much. Yeah.
Art wise, I love that the lightning bolt scar on his head is the horizontal one, kind of like on the back of every Harry Potter trading card game. Like that's like just a little bit of weird trivia. Is that's what it was meant to be, but in the movies they went vertical. So
Right,
yeah, I do like this this art rendition of Harry Potter.
Have you
He looks
seen
very
the
innocent
whole?
too. Yeah.
Have you seen the whole image?
No.
Like what?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send it. I'll send it to you guys, and maybe we can even post it or something. The whole image is actually really cool because sometimes, I like just to be able to see what the whole image is supposed to be because they only take like a small snippet to put. But yeah, it's actually really cool. He's like standing like I guess what would be like in Diagon Alley.
Yeah.
And behind a store or something. But it's really neat, and I like that in this card. It says you may draw a card because it kind of gives you the option to or to not, because if you're running low or something, you have the ability to not do it. So
Totally. And that takes us to our next location.
yes, next location is going to be a Leaky Cauldron, and one of like my favorite arts in this set for sure. It costs 2, and it is a potions lesson. So it says, whenever either player plays a character card, he or she uses up 1 action to play it instead of 2. So pretty cut and dry. Really, really nice card to use.
Yeah, and it's funny, like you were saying, that it benefits both players. It's like the Ron Weasley ability, if I recall. And I think he's a banned card, so it's kind of funny that Leaky Cauldron, you could probably get away with it as the location.
Yeah, he's banned in Revival, but you can, but obviously, you guys, whoever's playing out there, use them. Yeah,
play whatever decks you like.
Right.
Yeah, it is a location, so both of you get the benefit. I think Ronald is only for you, right? Or am
yes,
right.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
It's a little bit more balanced, and the flavor, right? Like that's where you meet people at the Leaky Cauldron. So really nice flavor there.
I love that. Yeah.
Yep.
And now we go to Doug's favorite card. Actually.
Doug's
yeah, I misspoke on it earlier. I was saying
The 3-year long match.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, 3-month long match. It's a Quidditch match, and to win, you do 30 damage to your opponent while this card is in play. It doesn't have to all be at once. Prize is the winner does 15 damage to his or her opponent. So I think this came up with on the previous episode when we were talking about Quidditch Cup. The combo of 3-month long match followed by Catch the Snitch. Very brutal. So yeah,
100%.
Awesome match. I only have a couple copies of it myself, but again, I don't play it because unless I am going to be that brutal and do the follow up with the Catch Snitch, but the idea of going back and forth over like the whole game, doing a little bits of damage here and there seems a bit tedious.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime I've ever played against somebody who has a Quidditch deck, they usually stack up with this and Catch the Snitch. It's very seldom that I've ever actually played a match all the way through.
Right.
Unless it's like a Quidditch and creature combination where you're easily stacking up that damage. But yeah, I totally dig this with Catch the Snitch. It's a really good way to just do the damage to your opponent and get the match done and over with.
This match particularly makes me think why we have Beater Catches the Snitch as the first card in this, because you want to bounce this one immediately. Because let's say they're very heavy on items like the Bludger and all that are contingent on matches being in play. They're just going to continue to do that much more damage to you. So yeah, just get this one out of here.
Yep, for sure.
Definitely. And now we can go through the arc.
Yes.
Which is the adventure that has the most terrifying art, the Harry Potter TCG.
Oh my god, it does. Yeah.
It has like Hagrid, like it looks like a sex offender, to be really honest, and he is like smiling there creepily, touching Harry with a hand that is
the size of
Harry's back. It's just disgusting. Harry's in the crotch level. It's just everything's wrong with it. But regardless, it's an equally disgusting card to play. So this adventure, your opponent can cast spells. So it's the same effect as for Private Drive. But the thing that they have to do to solve it is that they have to just skip 4 actions. It doesn't have to be in a row. So that's very, very reasonable of them to put that there. So you skip 4 actions, and then you resolve this, and then you may take an item from your discard pile, right? Discard pile into your hand.
Mm-hmm.
This was played against me in the first round of the tournament, and I as a Quidditch heavy. It was only Quidditch in that deck. All my damage are spells, and it was just like, oh my god!
Right.
I ended up skipping the 4 actions, and I knew it was like a death sentence. So Through the Arch is brutal. I hate it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's brutal. The majority of the cards that do damage are spells anyway, So unless you're playing against somebody who has a creature deck, and then yes, exactly, yeah. So it's like, but you want to get rid of it anyway because most likely you're going to use spells. So
yeah,
definitely.
And art is subjective, but George Dons, who's the artist, I hope you're not listening to this, but if you did, it's this nightmare fuel. And I don't know what you're doing right now with your life, but you should do creepy illustrations. Very creepy.
We should move on to the next one. This is actually the last rare of Diagon Alley, and it's Mona's.
Yes, it is. It is Vanishing Referee. Choose a non-healing character in play, of course, other than your starting character, and shuffle it into its owner's deck. You're just basically taking a non-healing character and shuffling into your deck. Now, it does say choose a non-healing character in play.
Yeah.
So that could be yours.
Yes.
Yeah, and then shuffling it into your deck. And so if you want to use its ability again or something like that, then that's definitely very helpful.
Definitely.
Yeah,
or bouncing opponents. Yeah.
Powerful
Very
card. Good. You're not returning it to their hand. It's not being discarded. You're sort of healing your opponent in a way, right? Because you're giving them one more card in the deck. Right. That's where the Harry Potter TCG mechanics, you really have to think about it through, right? Because this card in other games, Naruto TCG, or even in Magic Gathering, or even Yu-Gi-Oh, like things that send cards back to the deck are devastating because you're depleting your opponent's resources. If it's something that they have to activate, right, or a passive effect that's continually activated, and it's just very devastating. But in this case, it also heals you. So really interesting how it turns out here in Harry Potter.
Yep.
Definitely. And that takes us to our next spell card. It is Alahatsi Draught. I always struggled with that pronunciation, but it's 7 potion power cost, and it reads, do 6 damage to your opponent or choose one of his or her items in play and discard it. So nice little bit of an option there. A bit expensive, but it's a pretty straightforward card.
Exactly.
Yeah, not much to say about it, really.
Yeah.
Other than Harry I'll have what he's having.
He looks pretty high.
Enjoying
he's definitely pretty high.
He's smelling those fumes a little and having too much fun.
And so pretty simple card. And now we're gonna move on. It's my turn, I think.
Yeah.
And we move to the Barn Owl, that looks like that alien-looking owl that we all love.
Mm-hmm.
I really love Barn Owls. They're really creepy. And it costs 3. When you play, you have to discard a lesson. So we know that Mona doesn't want this near her. And basically, you can put a creature card from your discard pile into your hand. So the creepy owl searches for a dead body and puts it into your hand as a prize. Really interesting. 1/1 for 3. You get a card back, but you have to trade your lesson for it. Interesting. Art is creepy. Barn owls are creepy, but cute. And that's all I can say about this.
I love the ability of this owl because let's say you've already been playing owls and 1 or 2 has already got discarded. You just get another one back. Very handy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. As far as the art, I absolutely think that it's great. It is creepy, but I like the fact that it's creepy.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then of course, this is one of the owls that you're going to want to add if you're going to do an owl deck. So just a good card.
Yeah, definitely a card that you as I said, it's hard to make barn owls not creepy. It's just a very weird animal. I love them, but they're creepy.
Yeah.
And now, Mona, you get to talk about your combo.
Yes, perfect. So we've got Beetleize as the next one. It costs 5 potion lessons. It's an item. And it says, when you play this card, do 4 damage to your opponent. You may use an action to discard this card and Eel Eyes from play to search your deck. You may take a Bulge Eye potion card from your deck, put it into play, and then shuffle. So, we haven't gotten to Eel Eyes yet, but essentially once you have Beetle Eyes and Eel Eyes in play together, you can discard those to put Bulge Eye into play, which is great because we talked about how expensive Bulge Eye potion is.
Absolutely.
And, so it just really does you a favor. And I think that's sort of like, the whole point is that you use both of those and you put them into play fairly quickly. This one costs 5, Eel Eyes cost 1. And and then you can essentially just have 5 lessons in play to put Bulge Eye. So it's a really good combination there. I like it.
I'm surprised we don't see more of that with potions specifically, because it's super flavorful of like, oh, these are the ingredients you need in order to fetch this potion or create it. Very, very cool. And a fast way to get Bulge Eye into play.
Yeah, and you want that in play because, like we said, especially if depending on who your starting character is, if you do start with Arthur Weasley, then you can do damage each turn if you wanted to, and then even if you discard it right away to do 13 damage, that's a lot of damage. And I don't know of any other card that does that much. I think there's a couple maybe that are up there, but that's high. So
definitely,
yeah, and and it's just a card. It's weird. Not weird. It's good that it makes healing cards slightly better, because if you are running Eel Eyes and the Beetle Eyes, then it makes sense to heal the potion back to your deck because you can just fetch it with them. So that's a very interesting case there.
Definitely. And that leads us to our next spell card. It's Quidditch powered. It costs 3. Biased Commentary. God, I love this card. It reads, the next time this turn you play a spell card that needs Quidditch power, if that card does damage to your opponent, it does 5 more damage. So this is a stacker. You're going to play Biased Commentary and then follow up with something that does damage. I particularly like Hawk's Formation, which is from the Chamber of Secrets set, and you can do some serious damage. And then, stacking with Bludgers, add Oliver Wood's ability. Quidditch is crazy.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, even if you had like a mid-air collision that does 10 damage, it's just like it's crazy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I love Lee Jordan there being the biased commentator, being like Gryffindor's the best.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I guess. Just joking. Yeah, that makes sense. So should we move on?
Let's do it.
Quidditch players talking about Quidditch. So I'll join you by talking about the. Sorry.
You're good.
Blue Bottle Broom.
Yes.
Not to be confused with Blue Bottle Coffee, which is a coffee shop around here. And you have a mom. I hope it's a mom or someone kidnapping a child.
Yeah.
Broom. And it costs a total of. Sorry, my phone is acting up. 4. It provides 1 Quidditch lesson. If you have Hooch, you can potentially fetch this if you are feeling like that. It's a healing item, and once you may use an action, to put a non-healing card from your discard pile into the bottom of your deck. And of course, you can only have 1 broom in play, so it discards the next one. So yeah, interesting card. I have no experience using this card as a Quidditch card. But have you all used it? Or
no, it doesn't seem like, of all the brooms, this seems like the least useful one for me, at least.
Yeah, same. And I just don't have experience with it because I have yet to really build a broom focused deck. So I need to do that, and once I do and kind of experiment, this will be the first one that I go to try to add in there, because it seems like it'll serve its purpose, especially since it's 4, but it provides 1 lesson power. I think that's really important. So
yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Now we go to the Cauldron Shop.
All right, let's go to the Cauldron Shop. It is a location, and either player may use an action to search his or her deck. That player may take an item card from his or her deck that needs potion power, show it to his or her opponent, and put it into his or her hand. Then that player shuffles. So this is something that can help you find the combination we were just talking about,
exactly.
Eel Eye and Beetle Eye in order to get your Bulge Eye. So this is something good to have in your hand for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, beautiful art. I love anything that has to do with selling things. And all those cauldrons there are just so pretty.
Yeah, so unique and interesting. Yeah. I like it a lot too. Great location.
Now we go to a very weird spell. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall this spell in the books. Maybe it's somewhere, but it's called Kalashu, I could be even pronouncing it wrong, but it reads, look at your opponent's hand. If there are any item cards there, choose one of them and discard it. So yeah, could be handy. I don't run this myself. Oh, and I forgot to mention it's Charms Lesson Power. It costs 3. So very low, easy way to just target. If you know your opponent is running items, you could just be like, get that one out of here. But yeah, and the art is funny. He's like stuck to some gum on the ground or something, and then he's dropping vials of potions. It's interesting. Is that Snape? I'm not sure who that is.
Yeah, I think it is Snape.
Yeah.
And I remember reading somewhere that Wizards of the Coast sort of created their own spells and stuff like that, you know. So a lot of these that we'll find that are like, what? We never heard of that. It's just because it's a spell that didn't exist in the books. They just sort of did their own thing.
Oh,
which
wow.
Which is really sort of interesting because like for the first and second book, which is where all of this imagination kind of came from, there are enough spells. So it was almost like, well, we're going to add our own stuff. And so, you know, maybe that's like a thing that TCGs do, Emilio, that you might, you know, know from or something. But like, and it's not a problem, obviously, but then it sort of adds like, well, where did you get that? Like,
right.
Of all the fucking words that you could think of, dude, this is what you come up with.
Kalashu,
you have, you have the ability. But anyway, so
in Spanish we used to say coyosho. That's how we read it. In our school.
Double L.
Koyosho.
It's a really weird. I don't know where that gunk is coming from, but it looks like an STI, to be honest. So we can move on.
Yeah, fair enough.
It might be Crab and Goyle. You never know what they're up to.
Oh gosh.
Snape. Anyways,
playing with that silver unicorn horn. Anyway,
Death Eater reunions who know what they do there. Anyway, so we have the next card is the Ill Eyes. It costs 1. It's, as you can guess, the picture has eyes and they're in a bottle. They look pickled to me, so that makes sense. And when you play this card, you can look at your opponent's hand, and that's what it does. So it's, you know, costs 1, comes in, gives you an extra action. If you have Draco Malfoy slithering out, you can look at your opponent's hand and prepare for Mona's hand with, you know, like 4 through the arc and 4 Privet Drive. And then you can discard Eel Eyes and Beetle Eyes to fetch the Bullseye Potion. So, you know, both the Beetle Eyes and the Eel Eyes say the same effect. So really cool item. And there's not much to say because we really talked about the combo already, like a lot.
Totally. It's
exactly
the opposite of Beetle Eyes, or the helper to Beetle Eyes, actually. Yeah.
So now we can go to Frog Spawn.
Okay, cool. Frog Spawn is a spell. It costs 2 care magical creatures and lessons, and it says during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to your creatures. So pretty cut and dry. Really, you know, really good card. I've only used it a couple times. I don't really use it that often, I guess. My way of preventing damage is really playing Riding the Centaur. But yeah, this is good.
Yeah, very low cost and very powerful, especially if there's an onslaught of creatures coming your way. Nice way to just avoid that.
Yeah, apparently they like to eat frog spawn. I don't understand the flavor of this card. You throw at them and they eat that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good point.
I also wonder why they used the quote that they did from Petunia, which was which says, "I was the only one who saw her for what she was, a freak." You know, so I wonder like how they try to tie that into frog spawn. Do you guys?
That's the stereotype of nerdy people or freaky people, or relationship of freak to nerd being people that enjoy nature as well and like are out there getting dirty looking for animals. As someone that is in the field with animal behavior, that's a common stereotype. To be honest, so it's like
interesting.
You're freaky because you're like looking at animals getting dirty and exploring. So that's what comes to mind to me.
All right, well, listener, if you have any idea or you want to pitch in, then please leave us a comment on what your thoughts are on that.
You can always get in touch with us. Send us an email at rennervatepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your interpretations of some of these cards or your experience with them.
Definitely.
But that leads us to our next spell, which is a charm spell. It's injured. It costs 5 power. I'm not a fan of this one, but it says, look at your opponent's hand, discards all powers or all cards that from it that need Quidditch power. So
what an amazing card.
Oh, it's so upsetting because
love this card.
There goes my catch the snitch. There goes my matches. There goes literally my whole hand.
Is gone.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of this one. Luckily, I haven't encountered it too much, but yeah, if I were to,
Run 5 in your deck if you're
yeah, I'd
playing
be
against
crying.
Dob.
Yeah.
5. No cheaters out there. No, but no, it's an interesting card for sure. Very good anti-Quidditch.
When I first learned of this card, I was the happiest because I was getting like just pulverized by somebody who had a Quidditch deck. Because Quidditch decks are meant to be brutal because Quidditch is brutal. That's the whole point. But I remember when I saw this, I was like, hell yeah, I want to play this card. And just like discarding their whole hand. Especially if you run 4 of these and their hand gets really big, you're like, I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that.
Oh my god, yeah, could be brutal.
Nasty card. Let's move to another card that also is kind of weird. It's a spell called Lappy Force.
Mm-hmm.
It costs 7, so pretty pricey. It has what looks to be the back of a cat and the front of a rabbit.
Yes.
And this spell reads: you choose one of your opponent's creature in play and discard it. Then search your deck. You may take a creature card from your deck, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand. So you're transforming like your opponent's creature into your own. Transforming a creature into something else. Interesting, really costly. It does remove a creature though. I don't know. Like, have you either of you used this card?
Nope. Never really ran it in a deck, but the fact that creatures and transfiguration go hand in hand, I could see someone maybe using this, but not myself yet, at least.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm in the same boat just because of how expensive it is. I'm just sort of I get that it's sort of like kind of does 2 things because you can use one spell to get rid of a card and then you can play a creature which is using 2 actions.
Yes.
So I do understand that part, but I just personally haven't invested in it because I'm like, it's kind of pricey, so whatever.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Oh, that takes us to our next location.
All right, let's do it. And that is going to be Madame Malkin's Robes. Whenever a card, yours or your opponent's, does damage, it does 1 less damage. And that's Transfiguration, and it costs 4. What do you guys think of that card?
I've seen people use this to their advantage when they're getting attacked by creatures, but especially, owl decks specifically, but I don't really run this myself too often.
Same.
Very weird card. I guess that they're putting pins up your body and it sort of like does more damage. Okay. I don't know. It's like It's very blah to me. I think it's a good effect, but I just don't care for it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, that takes us to our next one. And actually, I might have been mistaking it for this card. Porcupine Robe. Its transfiguration costs 7. Pretty expensive. But it's an item that reads: at the end of each of your opponent's turns, do 1 damage to each creature that did damage to you that turn. So that's really comes in handy for owl decks because they do 1 damage to you. You do 1 damage to each creature. So you could just wipe out. Or spiders, for instance, they usually only have a health of 1 unless the location's in play. That's going to boost them. But this one's a pretty good item, but again, I don't really run it because of how expensive it is.
Yeah, this is actually an item that I would use that investment for, especially like you said, Doug, if it's going towards a like an owl deck, because some of these, like even Black Bat, for example, is a really good creature, but its health is really low. So I think it's 2 health and 2 damage.
Yeah.
And so with something like that, I mean, you just to have that investment in playing this item, and you can have multiple of them in play as well. And so if that's the case, then you can kind of stack them up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it could be that defense that you would have if you were looking at having like Leaping Toadstool or something along those lines, where you can just use it every single turn instead of utilizing it.
I find it funny. It's not a unique item in the sense that Harry's got multiple porcupine robes on him.
Right. Yeah.
Why not? It's an interesting card. Like in other games, when your deck running out is not part of the damage that of your life, basically, you can do what's called like a pillow fort deck, in which you have cards that really nullify damage done to you, basically, and you can just survive a game. But in Harry Potter, that's harder to do, sadly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but now we can move to a practical joke. Right?
Yes,
and that's mine.
Yep.
Very fitting. So it has 3. Transfiguration, practical joke, the spell, and then you count the number of items in play and do that much damage to your opponent. So if you're playing swarms of cards or you're playing swarms of items, or your opponent has items, it's swarm, right? But with items. So really cool card. I haven't used it personally in my item decks, but I think it's cool.
I was going to say, it's perfect for your item deck, but unless you don't really have Transfiguration in there, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, dope.
I think this next card is Mona's.
Yeah, let's go. So this is going to be quality Quidditch supplies. And this location says either player may use an action to search his or her deck. That player may use an item card. I'm sorry. That player may take an item card from his or her deck that needs Quidditch power, show it to his or her opponent, and put it into his or her hand, then shuffle.
Yeah, very handy. Like we said with locations, it affects you and your opponent. So if you have Quidditch cards in your deck, this is a location you want in play, whether it's your opponent playing it or you.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Very good location.
Yep.
That takes us to our next creature. It's the Quintuped. Very hideous looking thing. Too many teeth. Absolutely gross. But it's doesn't read anything. It just damage each turn is 2 and health of 5. So not discarding anything. To get it in play, it costs 5 care of magical creature power. But honestly, really annoying creature to play many instances of because of that health of 5. Not easy to just get rid of, and the damage of 2 stacks. So I do find myself playing this in quite a number of creature decks, especially when I'm like thinking of like what other creatures can I sneak in here. It's like this is always a good option.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's quintuped and it's got its 5 legs, I almost wish that it was like, it cost 5, the damage was 5, the health was 5.
Right.
Yeah. That would have been kind of cool because it's also one of those like made up that wasn't in the books, right? I mean, I don't remember ever reading
all
about
things.
this. Yeah, so like
so many
you
creatures
had
to make up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you had an opportunity here.
Then if they were going to make it 5 damage each turn, at least then make it a rare or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because
that's
exactly to balance it out, or make it unique even just to have one.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But yeah, interesting creature.
For sure.
And now we go to a card that we've already talked about, which is Spiral Dive, right? Like that's your stuff?
That's
yep. Yeah, that's the one I mentioned previously about how I had that deck built around it, but I think this is actually Emilio's card to discuss.
It's Emilio's.
Oh, it's mine. Okay, cool. So Spiral Dive costs 5, and as we talked about, you discard as many cards as you want from your hand, so it doesn't have to be your whole hand, and you do that much damage to your opponent. So as Mona brought up, I think both of you have Diagon Alley adventure, and then you solve it with Draco's trick or something.
Yep.
Then you can draw as many cards as you want, and potentially you can one-hit your opponent depending on where you are at in the game with this Spiral Dive. So really cool card. Yeah.
I screwed up for the tournament and didn't get my side deck in order in time because I was like struggling with the untapped interface. I'm new to it all, but regardless, I was like, I'll just fly without a side deck. This was the card when we would get to the point in matches where it's like, if I had a side deck, I wanted this because like I said, I'd run into the instance where it's like, oh, there's starters, Oliver Wood, any instance of Oliver Wood I can't use. So I would want to just like discard cards that became dead weights with this card. But yeah, very interesting Quidditch card I didn't see the value in until recently.
Yeah, which is pretty cool about some of the cards is they sort of sneak up on you, like even though it's such an old game and all of us sort of assume that because it's old that maybe we've done all the combos or whatever, but that's just an example is that, you have so many cards that we still don't know the value of. Like at face value, we read them and we're like, meh, whatever. But, really studying it, so that's why it's like, I'm just going to sort of like say this is my own opinion. Like I know that we're doing fan stuff, in the community as a whole, but don't forget about these cards that are original. They're popular. They're good for what they are. And that you guys need to like focus on those because, you're still learning from them. You know what I mean? Like that combination we were talking about before, the snuffling potion and the burrow.
Yeah,
that's something that those 2 cards have been around for ages, but we hadn't really heard about that combination until recently. So
absolutely,
yeah, really good card.
Definitely.
Okay.
Now we go to
Verdilius. Yeah. So that's mine, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Verdilius, it costs 9. Which is really expensive. It costs 9. It's charms. So it says do 5 damage to your opponent or to a creature of your choice. So I guess because of the or, maybe they make it a little bit more expensive. That was sort of, we're talking about that give and take. So Doing 5 damage is definitely, especially to a creature,
Yeah.
that's definitely something if you've got that quintuped or something.
Exactly. That's what came to mind. Take out a quintuped in one turn or one action. That's actually, explains why it's 9, but that is very expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would, I mean, that's expensive to have in there just to get rid of a quintuped that only does 2 damage, though.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is not a good card.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So now we can move on to a very good card, though.
Yes, we've brought this up, I feel like, on previous episodes. That's how good it is. But yes, this is one of the best locations we get. It's called Wand Shop. It costs 4 charms, lesson, or power, and it reads, all charms lessons, yours and your opponents provide 2 charms power instead of 1. So yes, again, it's only lessons. So if you have, let's say, a wand or something in play that's providing charms power, that doesn't double. Correct. But your lessons will. And man, just such a handy card. Really boosts your lesson count quickly, and also like for things like Incendio, or no, as Incendio is, I'm pretty sure, I forget exactly, but certain cards it does really work well with.
Yeah, no, for Incendio doesn't work because Incendio counts the lessons. Yeah.
You're absolutely
right.
Not
the power.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is definitely a card that I use in my Potion and Charms deck, which is the Venomous Tentacular Juice and Dobby's Help combo. Yeah. Anybody who has that combo in a deck, this card is absolutely very, very imperative for you to have. I mean, because it's like you can just stack those up and use it right away. I mean, you can have 5 lessons in play to play a card that costs 10. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
really
that's
good.
pretty cool.
Yep.
Really cool card, and the art is super cool as well.
Yeah,
the really fancy one there. So should we move?
Let's do it.
To the wild boar. It's my card, right?
Yep.
And it's just a wild boar, very plain wild boar looking. Costs 2. You have to discard 2 of your lessons, so we know Mona is not running this. And it damages for 3 each turn and has a health of 5. So it has a big drawback, but it's pretty powerful, for the cost, even though you have to discard.
Right. I like how low cost it is, but the discard 2 for what it is, I never play this card.
Yeah, I wouldn't play it either.
Plus, it's just a boar. We have those in the Muggle world.
It's not magical.
Yeah. This is Diagon Alley's version of a cunning fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And now we can go back to school with this next book here.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got a Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration. It's a Transfiguration card. It costs 2. It does provide 1 power, which is always great. It's an item, and it says you may use an action and discard this card from play to draw 3 cards. So you might want to, put it into play early because it only costs 2, and then it provides 1. And then once you're able to stack a little bit more, getting rid of it, is fine. Maybe before your opponent does, and it can do something for you, which is drawing 3 cards. So not too bad.
Pretty nice resource builder if you need it. It's you could use it for the lesson power or the resources. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it's cool. With Draco, I love the books with Draco. It's really, really nice, because they cost low, they provide you a lesson, you get an extra action, and when you need to, you discard and draw 2 cards. It's great.
Yeah, no brainer for a Draco deck. That takes us to our next card, which is Bludger in the Stands. It costs 6 Quidditch power, and it's a spell that reads, do 4 damage to your opponent. Then if your opponent has any items in play, he or she chooses one of them and discards it. So yes, the Bludger is smashing things again.
Ooh, because your opponent chooses. That's the bad part, right? So if your opponent has multiple items, that they can just choose whatever, they don't care.
The junky one, yeah.
Like if you're dueling against my deck, like I'll just discard a book.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, same. I like that it does 4 damage, but yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat as you guys.
Yeah.
I love the shoe in the bottom left. It's like for whatever, that's a focal point, and for whatever reason they put that there. So
that is very funny. Maybe that's the item that's going to get damaged.
Well, the whole
the Bludger's going right at it. Yeah,
the whole foot is going to be destroyed at that point. But we can move to one of the stupidest spells in the whole set.
Yes,
it's called Blue Wig. You have, it costs 6 charms. You have this like teacher lady screaming because her wig is blue, which apparently does 4 damage to it. and then you draw a card. It makes no sense whatsoever. Why would a blue wig damage you? Why would you draw a card from it?
I swear this was Wizards of the Coast being like, well, we've either run out of ideas or have like a filler card. Like, what can we do? This one is very just like out of like every time I pull this or have a copy of this, I never use it, and I always just kind of look at it like funny. I'm like, this is just a strange card.
Yeah, same. I'm not gonna of all the other cards out there that do damage, I'm not gonna use this one. You know, this has just never been on my radar. So
yeah.
So we can move to the butterfly.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Yep, Butterfly Weed Bomb. It's a spell and it's healing. It does cost 5. It's a potion card, and it says to play this card, discard one of your potion lessons from play, shuffle up to 9 non-healing cards from your discard pile into your deck. So to shuffle 9 and it costs 5, I think is definitely pretty good. You have to be ready, of course, to discard 1. But just depending on where you are in the game, maybe you've stacked up your lessons. There's always space for these types of cards for sure. But have you guys used this?
This one is one of my go-to for healing decks because it only costs 1 lesson to do 9, and it's particularly great when you could use both actions to play this card twice because then you're healing 18. But again, you're going to want to have a bunch of lessons already in play and feel like you could already take that take that in stride. And that's the thing. With like potion decks, you have a lot of cauldrons in play. So hopefully even by you discarding 2 lessons, your cauldrons are keeping your lesson count high with their power. So this one, it's nice to heal.
It's pretty.
Fair enough. And then that takes us to another card I don't like, which is called Canceled Practice. Transfiguration only costs 2, and it says choose one of your opponent's Quidditch lessons in play and discard it. So, anti-Quidditch. Gotta hate it.
I know.
Yeah, apparently wizards can't fly in the snow. So that makes sense. So very simple card. It's a hate card, so we can move along without the hate. And we have the Dog Bane Potion. You have some dog biscuits, a collar, and a dog paw on a potion pot. It costs 5. It's a potion card. It's a spell because all potions are spells, such as our Butterfly Weed Bomb. And you choose one of your opponent's creatures in play and do 3 damage to it. Once again, I don't know what was going through people's mind when they made this card. Why would you do 3 damage for 5?
5 seems heavy for
a creature.
What it does.
It's not an item. I think they just did this card because this last card said they keep getting worse and worse.
Right.
Wig, Dogbane Potion is like, at least read the book, But that's my opinion.
Yeah.
But speaking of the dog biscuits on that card, that's our next card.
It is, and it costs 1. It's a Care Magical Creature card. It's a spell. Remove all damage counters from one of your creatures in play, then draw a card. Actually, this isn't too bad of a card, especially if you've got something like Leaping Toadstool in play, where that damage is really sort of adding up. And whenever I play Leaping Toadstool, my starting character is Sprout. Yeah. And so she gives my character or my plants more health, and once you're at 5 or something, then you can play this and just restart without having to get rid of it. So it is good, especially with how cheap it is.
Yeah, it's a nice card. Simple and nice. Yeah.
Definitely. I could see myself using this to heal my Fluffy or something after someone's been trying to get rid of it. That'd be brutal.
Yeah.
But yes, this takes us to our next book, which is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. We all know that one.
Yeah.
It provides 1 Care of Magical Creature lesson. It only costs 2, and it's an item book that reads, you may use an action to discard this card to draw 3 cards, just kind of like our other one for Transfiguration. So another handy book.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cut and dry. Books always do something good for us. So.
And of course, the reference to, this is the new Scamander's book. So this is from the new movies. Not from the new movies. It's always been around. It's cool that they added the little lizard thing in Newt.
Yeah.
I like that too.
Yeah.
So then we have a spell that really confused me, and I'll share more. I'm sure all of you may have a similar experience. But this Flip Pendo, of course, flip, and we have a guy or someone there maybe Percy.
I was gonna say Percy, absolutely.
Being flipped flipped by probably Fred and George. The paintings are laughing. It only costs 2. It does 2 damage to your opponent or creature of your choice. And the reason, so pretty simple, right? Like whatever. But the thing that, the thing about this card that really confused me was because in the PlayStation games,
Yes.
Flipendo was one of the spells that you could use. And I was so confused. It's like, because it was like an energy bolt, right?
Yep.
I was like, why is Yard I mean, I understand. It was really confusing because I just thought Flipendo was just like a power surge or something. But it makes sense. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
It's just so funny that you say that, because I recently posted on Instagram a Game Boy Harry Potter Game Boy game, and somebody commented Flipendo, because like in that, and it was because I think it's the same game, you know what I mean, like the PlayStation one that you're referring to.
Yeah.
But it was just so funny because I was like, oh my god, it's like every other word is like Flipendo,
Flipendo,
and I was like, oh my god.
I blasted that Hogwarts castle with Flipendo blast all over the place. It was one of my favorite things to do actually as a player in games that you have a world that you can explore, is to blast things for no reason. So
yeah,
Legend of Zelda or Harry Potter, I would just be blasting everything, and Flipendo was my spell to blast things with.
It's so funny you bring that up. I found my original copy of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on PlayStation 1. I thought it was long gone, and once I found it, I popped it in and started playing it, and man, that is a throwback. Those graphics, not that they don't hold up, but gosh, just if anyone's unfamiliar, Google PS1 Hagrid and you'll have a good laugh. But Flipendo, great. I don't want to say great card, but I'm glad it brought back the nostalgia for the video game. Yes, great memory.
Yeah.
There we go.
Definitely, the graphics is a great when we go back to games that we've played, it's a great reminder of
how far we've come.
We don't and also of how blind we are, right? Like we don't know what we're looking at now. Maybe like 10 years from now we'll look at the recordings like, this looks like shit. Like it's just like it's in the contrast that you make. So really interesting. I remember this game looking perfect. My memories are like, this looked like I was there. Like the graphics were amazing.
What's funny about that is someone pointed this out. Back then we had like the TVs that were more like rounded and just like larger versus like these flat screens. If you're playing on something like modern, it is going to look much worse.
Right.
But that takes us to our next spell card with Mona.
Okay, it is called Freeze, and it's also a charm spell. It costs 3, and it says choose one of your opponent's creatures in play and do 4 damage to it. So yeah, I mean, do 4 damage to a creature, and it costs 3. Not too bad, I suppose.
Revisiting this makes me want to put this in some of my charms decks, because pretty low cost for what it does.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. Why would they have this and the dog bane potion? Like it just makes no sense.
You're absolutely right, Emilio. Good point.
Let's just ignore this card.
We'll move on to our next book. It's Magical Drafts and Potions. Only costs 2 potion power, and it reads, you may use an action to discard this from play to draw 3 cards, just like all other books. They're just very much resource builders, and it provides Quidditch potions power.
Yep.
Not much to say here.
Yeah.
Same.
And then, so we can move on to Meet Air Collision. It costs 10, and you have a Slytherin and a Gryffindor fighting there. It does 10 damage to one of your opponents, and then you choose one of their cards in play and discard it. So this is worth it. This price is worth for this effect, because you get to discard any card, and then you're doing 10 damage. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and usually I've used this card myself if I'm lucky enough to get 10 lesson count in play. The card I end up choosing to discard is usually like a lesson or something, because it's like, that's easy to swallow. I really do like this card a lot.
Yeah, exactly. This is sort of like, that, like if you had the example we were given before with Quintipede, if it cost 5 and it had that 5 damage, this essentially is that. It costs 10, but it has 10 damage, so you are sort of utilizing that power that you're putting out. And then, like Emilio said, to get rid of one card is always good. I mean, because it's essentially sort of like a picking on Neville, which we'll get to in a minute, but you have the ability to take one of their cards and just say, I'm getting rid of that. So
yeah, you choose.
Totally.
Choosing is good.
Yep.
And now we get one of the really coolest potions that I always love this art.
So, this one is great for sure. Moonseed potion costs 8. It's an item, and it says when you play this card, do 3 damage to your opponent. You may use an action and discard this card from play to do 6 damage to your opponent. So, it's great because you can play it first round and first action and do 3, and then you can discard it if you wanted to do 9. So.
Yeah, it's like Bulgeye Light.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
But like you said, though, as you play it, you do 3. I do like that. And there was a promo version of this card, if I'm not
Which
mistaken.
is beautiful.
Pretty,
Yeah.
so pretty.
Yeah, really
Very cool. Very good. That leads us to picking on Neville, which Mona just mentioned. This costs 4 transfiguration power, and it reads, it's a spell that reads, choose one of your opponent's cards in play other than their starting character and discard it. Your opponent may prevent this by choosing 2 of his or her cards in play other than his or her starting character and discarding them. So you're targeting something, and then they have the option of saying, actually, I'll discard these 2 to keep that in play. So clearly you're going to want to target something very powerful, and then they will maybe be like, well, I can get rid of 2 lessons and keep that in play, or they'll just swallow the pill and be like, I'll get rid of what you're targeting. I've had this used against me many times, and it makes me want to play this in my transfiguration decks because I never really did, and it's a very mean card.
Yeah, it is, and it's called the poor man's Dobby, Dobby's disappearance for a reason, because it's like, I mean, and we really say that because it costs the same as Dobby's disappearance, but the card itself is just astronomically fucking expensive. But anyway, I mean, it's really good essentially because, like you said, Doug, if you were to say, let's say someone has an owl deck or something, and you say, okay, I'm going to get rid of the one owl that you have or the most powerful owl that you have, they might be like, no, I'm going to get rid of something else. And you might be doing that on purpose, or you'll have that, and then you'll have a Dobby's disappearance. So you'll play that, they'll get rid of 2 instead, and then you'll just get rid of that one that you wanted to anyway. Again, sorry, Mona's savageness. It just sort of is what it is. So.
I'm taking notes over here.
It's a disgustingly powerful card. For me, if you discard 2 things, is better, regardless. Action wise, card advantage wise, it's just a horrible deal. So picking up Neville, definitely a powerful card that people should consider, even if you have Dobby's disappearance. So.
Exactly. Totally. Yeah, have it in your deck for sure, no matter what. Have them both if you can.
And now we have Piggly Dudley, not to be confused with Piggly Wiggly. And it's like a 5-cost transfiguration spell. It chooses one of your opponent's creature or characters in play and put it on top of his or her deck. As I've mentioned before, in any other game, things that put cards in top of the deck are normally pretty brutal because you can create loops in which your opponent is basically restricted to the same pool of cards. But in Harry Potter, you're also healing your opponent. So it's kind of like a very different vibe. So I wouldn't use this particularly, but I don't know if either of you have used this.
No experience whatsoever with this card. I just like to laugh at the tail on Dudley's butt.
Yeah, I think this card is sort of like you're putting it in with a specific purpose in mind. And so when it says choose one of your opponent's creatures or characters in play and put it at the top of his or her deck, to me, I would use that on my first action and then do damage on my
Yes, there you go.
So
that's smart.
That would be like, if there was a really powerful, like, for example, Doug, you mentioned Fluffy, right? So like that is a very powerful creature if you can manage to get Fluffy into play. So I would probably use this and then discard it. Now, Fluffy, you do have to get rid of 2 cards in order to put it in play. So if you were to discard it anyway or return it to your opponent's hand, it's unlikely that they'll be able to play it again right away.
I follow.
But just as an example, you would probably choose a creature that is doing damage to you, put it at the top of their deck, and then as your second, discard it, get it out of there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's a good idea.
Just so that you can't lock your opponent like you can do in other games, which is what I enjoy. That's the only reason I enjoy like putting cards on top of opponents' decks. In other games, you can just lock them, but here it's just harder to do. But it is a nice use what you're referring to. Definitely. Yeah.
Totally. All right, and that takes us to our next spell with Mona.
All right, so that is going to be Quick Thinking. It costs 6. It's a Quidditch spell, and it says do 3 damage to your opponent or draw 3 cards. So you have the option to do so. Either one, it's pretty expensive to do either one, in my opinion. It costs 6 to, so it's a decent card. I can see why some people would have it, but to me, I don't have to think quick for that one. So
yeah, it's very straightforward.
But
Can we insert some drums there? That was a moment.
yeah.
Yeah. Either
Thanks,
damage
Mom.
or
Okay.
draw cards. Up to you. But that leads us to, I think, maybe our last book of this set. I could be wrong, but it's Quidditch Through the Ages, only costs 2 Quidditch power, and just like all other books, it reads, you may use an action to discard this card to draw 3 cards, and it provides 1 Quidditch lesson, so, or power.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Beautiful book, but yeah. Same.
I love that they give books for all the lesson types. Like, thank you.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, and the last one will be the Sharns one, but we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Now we have the River Troll, costs 5. You discard one of your creature lessons, so we know Mona doesn't like this. And it has a horrible art. It looks like something you would find at Steamworks. And then if you don't know what that is, you should Google it.
Oh, gosh.
And then damage, each turn is 4, and the health is 3. So I don't play creatures that often, so I don't know. Is this good? Like, I don't know.
I play creatures quite a bit, but the thing is, again, I'm kind of siding with Mona here. For what this card does, I don't want to discard the creature lesson for it. There's so many other alternative creatures that don't require that will give you more health and maybe a little bit less on the damage. So it just depends on what you're going for. But I know there's a holographic version of this, despite it being a common.
From the decks, I think.
Exactly. So I forget which starter deck, but yeah, that's where you could find that.
Yeah, I in my opinion, like I wouldn't want to get rid of a lesson just to have 4 damage done. I mean, I would probably just use both of my actions to play 2 black bats to do 4 damage immediately to my opponent, and then I would say, well, for the remainder of the turns that I'm going to have in my actions, and I'll be able to at least do as much damage as I can. So I personally wouldn't use this, and I think it's the Diagon Alley
starter. That makes sense. Yeah, that would. Yeah.
Yep.
So now, Doug, you get to talk more about owls.
All right.
Screech.
Yes, the Screech Owl, it's only costs 3 Care of Magical Creature lessons, and it reads, when you play this card, you may put a lesson card from your discard pile into your hand. Love that ability. And damage each turn is 1, health each turn is 1, or health in general is 1.
Right.
Yeah, I play 4 of these if I have an owl deck. I love the ability to fetch my lessons from my discard pile.
Yeah, for sure. All the owls in the Diagon Alley set, I think, are worth having. There's a few owls that are in. I think there's one owl in base, Delivery Owl, that I don't think is decent for an owl deck. But for those who are listening who want to build an owl deck after this conversation, then definitely use one from Diagon Alley, I would say.
Yeah,
totally.
Well, I said that you would talk about it, but I thought it wasn't in Mona's turn.
That was Mona's turn. My bad. I think I took her turn. But how about Mona? You take this
really
one.
You really like owls. It's okay.
Yeah, I totally dig that. I didn't even notice. So yeah, we'll go to the next. Yeah, we'll go to the next card, which is a spell. It is a Quidditch card. It costs 5, and it's called Sloth Grip. And it says, during your opponent's next turn, you may prevent all but the first 3 damage done to you. So this is good for cards that are in play, like Slow Acting Venom. What's the item? The Quidditch item that does 3 damage each turn? Is
the
it
bludger?
Like Rogue Bludger? Yeah.
Yes.
The bludgers in general. Yeah, both bludgers, I think. Right?
Yeah. So I mean, something like that would be, kind of good to. But again, it's obviously just like the next turn, but it's decent.
Yeah. Even as much of a Quidditch head as I am, I don't play this card too much.
Same. Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll try to get our rotation back. I'll take this one. It's Spongify. It costs 2 Charms lesson power, and it's a spell that reads, choose a non-healing item in play and return it to its owner's hand, then draw a card. Don't like this card other than the art. The art's goofy. It's a book that has turned into a sponge.
Exactly. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that this is a great spell for undergrads. When you're reading and you just pass out, you can just at least have a comfy sponge.
Little pillow.
Yeah.
But other than that, unless you're discarding that the opponent's hand, it's a key item, I guess. You do draw a card, so that's nice replacement for the card, but it's like, okay.
Yeah. Very basic.
So now we can go to Swelling Potion. Costs 7. It has Goyle or Crab or one of those, which is same thing. It's a spell because all potions are spells that we've talked about, and it does 5 damage to your opponent. Then your opponent next turn, your opponent can't use actions to play item cards. I'm guessing because they're too fat to play cards, but they can cast spells. It makes no sense. But horrible art. It really looks like the kind of person you would find in a bar back home in Puerto Rico, just in a stool drinking all day. So yeah, that's all I can say about it.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty cut and dry. Do 5 damage to your opponent. I've used it a few times. I wouldn't say this is my go-to necessarily as far as like I know.
Was this an early Mona days when you weren't a monster? Because this doesn't read me like Mona. I don't know.
That's right. Definitely.
It's a bit pricey for what it does, but yeah.
Well, Doug, it's not your turn now. Okay. It's Mona's, but it's an owl.
And it is owl. Yep.
Yes, it is an owl. It's a tawny owl. It costs 3 because it's a creature, so a magical creature. When you play this card, you may put a non-healing item card from your discard pile into your hand. So this is good. Like we said, all the owls do something. They have some ability. So I kind of like this. I mean, especially if you've got something like dragon hide gloves. As far as the items, or there's a couple books that are good also for magical creatures. But either way, it's good to have.
Definitely. Perfect for the owl deck. I'm glad that they even gave us this many owls with Diagon Alley as a set so people can experiment with that. I know that's another thing Sammy had said on our interview. He's like, if you like owls, you're welcome. So I'm excited to see what the revival has in store for those people. But all right, this brings us to our second to last card of the set. It reads Teacup to Rat. It costs Transfiguration, 3 Transfiguration lesson power, and it's a spell that reads choose one of your opponent's items in play and discard it, then draw a card. So again, very straightforward. Get rid of an item and build up your resources.
Yeah, pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then you have Petunia, almost kissing a rat because of Lily Potter.
Yes.
So interesting.
That is.
And then we can move to our last book. It's just a standard book of spells, grade 1. It's a charms book. Provides 1, cost 2, provides 1 charm, and then can draw you 2 cards if you discard it. So that's the end of our cards.
Yeah, we did it again. And that's the thing. As usual, since there's 80 in the set, the last 5 are just lessons. We got magical creatures, charms, potions, Quidditch, and Transfiguration.
Yep.
So we did it. Yeah,
I did it.
I'm a big fan of Diagon Alley. This, the locations, just some really good cards in there. The rares, that's one thing I wanted to talk about at the beginning of this episode is I do have an entire box, a booster box that I intend on opening on a live stream for you guys. So that being said, it's about time we start wrapping this episode and doing our plugs and stuff. So I do want to shout out. So this episode is going live on the first Friday of June. So I'm thinking our unboxing event will most likely be taking place on Saturday the 10th. At 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're not unable to make that, by all means, we'll have links to where you can find this event, the Twitch channel specifically, and you can watch the VOD and see what kind of cards were pulled. But should be a very fun time, and I'm really looking forward to that. So if you're available, definitely check that out. And we'll also be posting some stuff on our social media about all that as well. But let's wrap this one up. Thanks for listening, guys. Emilio, let's hear from you about your YouTube channel and where our listeners can find you.
Of course, you can find me in Nostalgia Collective Investments in YouTube, and I have the links there for my Instagram and what's the Talktics? The TikTok and Twitch. Yeah. Anyway, I have everything there. You can find me anywhere, but just go to my YouTube first. Is what I mainly do, and you can learn about lots of old games like Neopets, Maple Story, Harry Potter. The list goes on, and most recently Metasu. Check out Metasu. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, very cool. I'm glad you introduced me to that. And how about you, Mona?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube. Into the Flu is the name of my YouTube channel, where I talk about the Harry Potter TCG specifically, but I also dive into some of the old vintage merchandise from the same time period, so we can sort of see like the different art that we'll find familiar from the card game and then into the toys and things like that, which I totally dig. It's one of my favorite things about that time period and Harry Potter.
Totally.
Yeah, my Instagram, Harry Potter Morsi. I'm always posting some stuff there, just sort of showcasing a bit of my collection. And a new venture for me is I began working with MuggleNet. For those of you who know what MuggleNet is, I'm a columnist and content creator for them now. And so what I'm doing is writing articles for them and making videos. It's exclusive for MuggleNet, so you guys can find out more about that. I think the first one goes live in June, I want to say, so around the same time will go out.
Excellent.
So yeah, I mean, just whatever support you guys want to show to that, please do. And my main goal with that is to really sort of bring the Harry Potter TCG and all this old stuff into the Harry Potter community, because I think a lot of people sort of forget about that because we get lost in the film age of Harry Potter.
Oh, sure.
So my very first article is about the Harry Potter TCG. So read
Let's
about
go.
it. I'm really excited to be able to be the person to, sort of like revive it in that way and kind of make it on that platform. So any feedback you guys have or anything you think that I should be writing about, please let me know.
Yes, that's super exciting. And yes, like I said earlier in the episode, listener, you can always get in touch with us at rennervatepodcast@gmail.com. We love getting your feedback. We've been getting some really good reviews and comments and stuff. So we appreciate you guys that opportunity you have, Mona. And yeah, there's so many people that are still, every time I tell someone that there even is a Harry Potter trading card game, they just get so excited and are like, I didn't even know. So, and the fact that we're living at a time where in the throw of this whole revival, it's like perfect for people to get involved. So if you're excited, please tell some friends and let them know what you think of our show. But that's going to do it for this week. We'll be back next month. We also have another interview on the horizon with some more revival team members, probably recapping this tournament we're in the midst of. But thanks for listening, guys. For this time, we can say that was it, and we'll say mischief managed.
Mischief managed.